All of time and space. Everywhere and anywhere, every star that ever was. Where do you want to start?
Hi, this is Mark and welcome to All of Time and Space. Sorry it's been a little while since we last spoke. I've not been too well, so apologies for the delay in this episode coming out. So, we finally reached the end of the Troughton era and the end of the 60s as well. So it's a pretty big episode for us, and we've got a fantastic guest who will be joining us just after we catch up with where we are in the story. Mud, barbed wire, the smell of death. The year is 1917 and the TARDIS has materialised on the Western Front during the First World War. Or has it? For very soon the Doctor finds himself pursued by the soldiers of ancient Rome, and then he and his companions are reliving the American Civil War of 1863. And was this really Earth, or just a mock-up created by the warlords? As the Doctor solves the mystery, he has to admit he is faced with an evil of such magnitude that he cannot combat it on his own. He has to call for the help of his own people, the Time Lords. And we'll be back after this.
This is the War Chief to all war zones. This is a command direct from the Warlord. All fighting will cease. I repeat, all fighting in the war zones will cease. You will stand by for further orders.
What did he mean, Doctor? Who mustn't you call?
The only people who can put an end to this whole ghastly business and send everyone back to their own times. The Time Lords.
Who are they?
They're my own people, Jamie.
Oh, well, that's all right then.
But it isn't all right, is it, Doctor?
No, it's not, Zoe. But I'm afraid there's no alternative.
What's he doing?
Don't do it, Doctor, you can't! You know what will happen!
Look at that! That is magic.
Doctor, are you all right?
Yes, Zoe, I'm all right.
Doctor, what's that?
It's a box, Jamie.
I know, I can see that.
It's a very special sort of box. It now contains all the information about what's been going on here and an appeal for help.
Help? Who from?
The Time Lords?
Yes, Zoe.
Well, why haven't you asked them for help before?
I've never really needed it before, Jamie, but this business of sending everyone back to their own times is, well, it's too difficult for me now. Now, come along. The War Chief! What? He's gone! What? He must be trying to get away before the Time Lords get here.
What are we going to do, Doctor?
We must go to the landing bay and stop him!
And welcome back, and joining us for this momentous occasion is the wonderful Simon Moore from Flight Through Entirety. Hello, Simon.
Hello, Mark. I'm delighted to be here.
Well, it's our pleasure to have you on the show. What a coup, eh? Getting such a mega broadcaster on for our big series finale.
Mega indeed. I don't know how you guys do it.
You obviously didn't have anything else on today.
Yeah. There was a large gap in my diary.
Yeah, we appreciate you making the effort. That's the pleasantries out of the way. Ian, I feel we've got to get the dirty business out of the way before we can crack on with the main topic.
Mark, I think you're talking about the mind probe, aren't you?
Yeah.
Okay, Simon.
Unless there's something else you have planned.
No. If you're ready, Simon, you are the one who will answer questions.
Oh.
It's time for the mind probe.
What? No, not the mind probe.
You are authorized to use the mind probe.
That's
cheeky. I like
that's
it.
stellar.
Very good.
Practicing
very
in front of the mirror, practicing in front of the mirror.
Oh,
It's paid
if
off.
only Paul Jericho had thought of doing that.
Exactly. Yeah. Sorry,
so
Paul, if you're listening.
It's the usual thing. It's a fairly inane quiz. Satisfy the challenge, and you'll be returned at the end of the show to your customary time and place. But if you fail in the quest, Castellan Cockram here is literally itching to toss you vigorously into the time lash.
Right. I fear
gets a little
vigorous
bit
tossing will be the
funnier.
order of the day.
A fate worse than death.
So what I normally do, or what I'd normally try to do, is use the kind of words of the episode title to give us interesting kind of tangents for questions. This time, however, there's not a lot to work with, so it's basically a pop music round, and if you don't know it, you don't know it, and there's not a lot we can do to sugarcoat that for the listeners. They can play along at home. So
That sounds right up my alley.
Excellent. Well, good. I'm glad. We got 10 pop songs here. They've either got war or games in the title. All I need from you is the artist.
The artist.
The artist.
Oh dear, I fear 0 from 10. But anyway, we'll see how we go. They can
We'll
play
see.
along.
You're a
at home.
music guy, Simon. This should be
Not
perfect for you.
that kind of music.
Yeah. Okay, so question 1. The song is War Pigs. War Pigs.
I have never heard of that song. Does that make
Okay,
me a bad
that's-
person? Or does that actually make me a very
Can I
sensitive
answer
person?
on Simon's behalf?
Yeah, well, you can
It's obviously
answer-
because Simon is far too young to know the band because they were way before his time. Is
well,
it
I mean,
Black Sabbath?
it is Black Sabbath.
Definitely not my
Okay.
genre.
I'm putting an M there. Song number 2. Future Games.
No, Fred, that doesn't ring a bell either.
That is Fleetwood Mac.
Oh.
Song number 3. This is War.
That was Bugs Bunny, wasn't it?
This is War. No, doesn't ring a bell. Let's just say U2. I'll start putting some random guesses in.
Oh, I like your working there. It's a band called 30 Seconds to Mars. I have no idea what they are, but I just put them.
Ironically, U2 had an album called War.
They did.
There you go, you
They
see.
did. They did.
Yeah.
Now this is there's a trap here, so be very careful. Song number 4 is called Wicked Games.
Ooh. Could that be Taylor Swift?
Oh, no. Well, no, but keep her in mind for subsequent questions.
Right. That's a hint. Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was The Weekend. Song number 5 is called The Great War.
Ooh, okay. The Great War.
Not just any
Was it
war.
Field Marshal Haig?
Great.
The
Yeah, it
Great
is.
War.
Yeah.
Which is very
Featuring.
appropriate for this story.
It is.
I am going to guess. The Great War. Who might have done something that sounded like that? Unfortunately, none of
Sounds
my
a bit
favourite
proggy.
pop artists tend to kind of do songs like that. I don't know. Midnight Oil. Put in an Australian connection.
It was Taylor Swift.
Oh no!
You see, I thought it might have been chronological. It could have been. I was saving Taylor for the end. Tay for
That
the
would have
end.
been, that would have been
Dear.
far too simple. Question number 6. Mind games.
Mind games.
Ooh.
Oh, that rings. That actually might ring a bell, but still doesn't.
It's had a re-release on just the last couple of weeks, in fact.
Has it really?
It's from it's a solo effort from someone who was in the Fab Four.
Oh, was it Paul McCartney?
Not that person.
George Harrison? No, he's dead.
Not that person.
Which one's still? No. Oh, it
was-
Ringo
it was-
Starr. Ringo's dead, isn't he? I don't know. I've lost
I
track
think
of who's
by the
alive and
time
who's
you-
dead in that band.
By the time you've guessed every single other Beatle, I think we're going to have to draw a line under this one. That was John Lennon. dead John Lennon.
Who is dead?
Okay.
Why did I stupidly start with one of the ones who was alive?
Song number 7.
That sound you can hear is John spinning in his grave right now.
Sure it is. Song number 7. We're going back to the first.
Oh
half
god,
of
we've
the
still got
80s
4 to
here.
go. Ah, right, okay.
War song.
The war song. Well, that's not the
Oh,
Band
come on,
Aid thing, is it?
Simon, No, I mean they were involved in Band Aid.
Is that the UK one or the American one?
In the UK one, they were they were a pretty massive band worldwide, I think. Their lead singer had quite an androgynous look.
Oh, Queen? No, he wasn't in Live Aid.
No.
Who am I thinking of? Put me
Come
out.
on, Ian. You don't really want to hurt Simon, do you?
I don't really want to hurt him. I don't come from
I
the
think
church
he
of
does.
the poisoned mind. That would give us bad karma.
I can't. I'm trying to.
it
Oh
was-
no!
We're
trying to
it's
give you
not,
massive clues
Who's
here,
Boy
Simon,
George?
but it's not
Oh,
really
Culture
working.
Club. Culture Club.
Yeah, we'll give him that. We'll give him that.
Yeah, fine. Song number 8 is called Foolish Games.
Foolish Games. Let's. There's a distinct lack of 21st century people here, apart from Taylor Swift. I notice. Foolish Games as well. Let's go
'cause Ian and
completely.
I are
Let's
very
go
old.
completely out there and say, take that.
It was someone called Jewel, apparently.
Right. Okay.
I don't know who that is or when it comes from.
Yes, I was about to say. I'm glad that was prefaced with someone called.
This is young person's music, so I'm on very
Young
shaky
person's
ground
music.
now.
Okay. Mike, there is no ground under my feet at this time.
All right, song number 9, Civil War.
David Bowie.
That would have been an amazing version. It was the all of time and space favourite band ever, Guns N' Roses.
Oh right.
I feared it, maybe.
Yeah, and finally,
Yeah, never mind.
Oh thank God.
finally, you wanted something. You wanted something from the 21st century. You wanted something unbelievably gorgeous. I give you video games.
Oh God. Now I have heard of that song, and I have no idea if we've already had Taylor. Then I don't know. Pink. Am I supposed to? Who is this person?
So the answer is Lana Del Rey, who is who is wonderful.
Right. Okay.
So at the end of
So-
the quiz, Simon,
I am. Yes. Give it to me.
you are going
At
in
the end,
time
we will.
lash.
Don't you worry about that.
I think I most certainly am going to the time lash, but nothing would give me more pleasure. But I
Wow.
think so. If I'm ever on this again, if I'm ever invited after that appalling showing, we need to do it. Let's do it about musical theatre.
I feel we need a classical round for Simon's benefit.
Schubert Lieder.
So I only really know Phantom, and there isn't a song about war or any games in Phantom.
What about Les Miserables?
I was going to say, yeah, it must be something from there.
Yeah, probably.
No.
Yeah.
No.
All right. Well,
No,
Mark, if
okay.
you can get
Okay.
the time lapse ready, get yourself.
Well, we'll
They're
cut
just firing
we'll
out
cut
now.
all that out.
Well, that was a lot of fun. So we've come to the end of an era. Not just the end of this season, but the end of the 60s, the end of the black and white era, and of course the end of the Troughton era. Before we get started, I have something of a monumental missive from a friend of the show, Ben Schneider. So if you will allow me, I will just read this out as succinctly and quickly as I can. But I think this would be a good place to start, and then maybe we'll work on from there. So Ben says, so the War Games. The War Games is special to me for a few reasons. For one thing, it was the first pure Troughton story I ever got to see way back in the 90s on VHS. But I mainly adore this story because it is in the War Games that I can point to the exact moment that I fell in love with the Second Doctor and the way Troughton performed the role. This moment is also when I transitioned from interested Doctor Who viewer into a raging die-hard fan obsessed with the show's history and mystery. The special moment in the War Games comes close to the end of episode 4, about 21-ish minutes in, he's very precise. The Doctor and Zoe are wearing funny glasses and pretending to be some of the aliens who are running the said War Games. The Doctor has just tricked the alien scientist into explaining how the brainwashing machine works, when suddenly an alarm goes off and the War Chief enters with a group of guards. The scientist reports that things are going great and points out the Doctor, noting that he's been very helpful. So the War Chief casually looks over at the Doctor. The Doctor, smiling from the scientist's praise, now casually glances over at the War Chief. They lock eyes. Immediately, the Doctor's happy expression goes blank, soon replaced by a look of shock, a look of recognition. The War Chief simultaneously shows pure disbelief, horror on his face, as he too recognises the Doctor. There's a millisecond of silence as the two stare at each other, and in that insanely short beat of time, a million things happen in the minds of the two characters. The War Chief recognises the regenerated Doctor and knows that with another Time Lord involved here, the others will soon follow. The War Chief's plans and dreams are now crippled beyond control. In short, his life as he knew it is over. At the exact same millisecond, the Doctor recognises the War Chief and realises that he's been found out. Another Time Lord knows where he is, and it won't be long before the rest will know too. In effect, the Doctor realises at that instant his life of happy wandering is over. The amazing thing is that neither of the characters are thinking of the here and now, such as the Chief capturing the spies or the Doctor's need to run away from the guards. Instead, both Time Lords are seeing the bigger picture, and the bigger picture terrifies them. None of that stuff is said. It's all shown in the faces of the two actors in their performance in a split second of silence. And, this goes on for about 10 pages. He's obviously a big fan of this story. So we'll finish up. He says, incidentally, this is why I loathe the Two Doctors so much. In my personal opinion, the Two Doctors is the worst Doctor Who story ever because it completely undermines and rewrites the motivations and backstory of the Second Doctor, as seen in the War Games, which as a result also rewrites his character, my favourite character. Simply put, it broke my heart. I can sum it up in one word: terror, or rather the lack of terror in the Second Doctor's attitude toward the Time Lords in Two Doctors. In other words, the Two Doctors stomped all over that glorious moment from episode 4 of the War Games. The terror is tossed aside in just one cringy Sixth Doctor story. All of that previous drama and emotion from the War Games is made void and silly. It ruined the moment, my moment. But seriously, what else can you expect from the writer of both the Crotons and the Space Pirates? Yes, thank you, Ben.
I was in complete agreement until the last bit.
Oh, well. Well, we'll save that for when we come to that particular story. It might be a while. Simon, what's your first sort of experience of the War Games? Would it have been the Target novel, or I guess you guys were getting repeats left, right and centre, weren't you?
Well, if you don't mind a long story here, yes, my first encounter with this story was the Target novel. Now, I know that we have a reputation in Australia for having, specifically in the 80s, having late 70s and the 80s, having endless repeats, and there were a lot of repeats, some gaps. At first, they were only doing the 625 line colour Pertwees. Then they started adding a smidgen of black and white Pertwees. So, for instance, we got the Silurians in 84, I think it was. And that was like, oh my God, they might actually show black and white Doctor Who. And the War Games novelisation, for some reason, I honestly don't know. I mean, yes, obviously it's the regeneration story. It's the end of the Troughton era. It's 10 episodes long, therefore it must be great, was my thinking at the time. You know, there was no Dalek Master Plan novelisation back then. I was absolutely captivated by the War Games novelisation. As I think the experience of a lot of fans of our vintage is that, you know, before you got VHS releases, Yeah, I mean, yes, we had the repeats, and that meant we could watch, things like the Hinchcliffe era over and over again, sort of annually. The only way to watch them or experience Doctor Who stories in between was, of course, the Target novels, and that's how you did it. And I actually, when I used to have to go into my mother's office on a weekend with her, sometimes when they had a big project to do or something, and I'd be taken there as a 10 or 12-year-old or something, too young to be left at home. I actually credit that and credit Doctor Who. I credit Doctor Who fandom with a lot of skills, and I think a lot of Doctor Who fans can credit Doctor Who fandom with a lot of skills that they've accumulated in their life. One of the first skills it brought me was typing. Not typing on a computer, but typing on an old-fashioned typewriter, because what you do, you have the. I told you this was going to be a long story. You had the making of Doctor Who. I didn't buy, because of course pocket money was precious, so I didn't buy the L'Officier because that just felt like another version of the making of Doctor Who with all the stories. Just had a few more. But then I managed to get them when a celebration comes out. Then you get the list of stories up to the 5 Doctors, and then you get the 20. And the Radio Times special, which had season 21, etc., etc. And so, of course, what does one need to do? One needs to compile a list, which is all in one place of all the stories, how many episodes there are, whether I had the Target novelisation or not, and very importantly, how many times I'd read that novelisation. And for some odd reason, it must have been as early as 1982, 83, but I was able to say how many times I had read each one. I already knew. There wasn't anything or how many times I've read that one. So, obviously you reread these books, and The War Games was the book that I reread the most, and I was always a disciplinarian with myself in that I would say I'm only allowed to read it once a year. Like it's repeated on television.
Wow.
You only get it repeated once a year. I was kind of thinking through broadcast.
Okay.
It was all very... God, I was a sad child. But I was absolutely captivated with that book. It was the one I was most looking forward to seeing. So wind forward a few years to when one gets involved in organised fandom in sort of like 89 was I was started going to things regularly in 88, and then 89 I started, and 90 started getting involved properly with the club, and let's just say that gives you access to things that were not generally available, nudge nudge wink wink, and so that was when I was able to see the story for the first time. It was a somewhat ropey copy of it, and at first I confess that I was a little not grossly disappointed, but a little disappointed with the story. I was hoping there were some things which annoyed me about it. But having said that, I then once I reconciled what my vision of it was from the novelisation with what it actually was, I'd gone back to loving it as I did the novelisation. Which
I mean, how many times would you read a Target novelisation and then see the actual programme and think, not quite as good as I thought it was?
Well, quite.
That's
Yeah, exactly. That's what was the magic about some of those repeats that we got when they did repeat in '86. They repeated all the Pertwees, some of which had never actually been shown, like Inferno or Mind of Evil, for instance, because they were deemed too violent when they were first out in the '70s. It was interesting watching things like Ambassadors of Death, which we were watching long before there was a novelisation, and absolutely loving that. And I don't think I'd ever read the Silurians novelisation, and loved that. But Inferno, I had read the novelisation of, and I thought, that was a bit disappointing. So it's funny, isn't it? You're absolutely right. Sorry, that was a very long story to say, yes, my first encounter.
It's good.
Sorry, the short version is, my first encounter was the Target novelisation, Mark. What
but that's the
guys?
interesting bit for me, is like learning how sort of people encounter these things, and everyone's got their own story.
Yeah.
Ian, I'm guessing you were probably raiding the local library for Doctor Who books. Would this have been one that you would have plucked off the shelf?
No, I never read... I did read the novelisation of this after I'd seen it. I got the... Do you remember it was the double pack VHS before they could mould one box that would house both tapes? It was the two boxes sellotaped together, and it was my 13th birthday present. And I went out on my birthday evening with my friend Keith, and we went to the cinema and we watched Dead Poets Society. And then we went back to mine, and he rung his dad, come and get me. And I said, let's put this on. And Keith didn't look very convinced. And he was asleep by about halfway through episode 1.
Oh, that's damning.
Yeah. He was a very different person to me. So yeah, I watched it 520 years ago on my 13th birthday. I am fascinated, Simon, that you said that the book was, on your initial viewing of the story, you thought the book was superior. And when I eventually read the book, I was really frustrated at how kind of, the brevity that it employed, the economy of
yes,
of dicks. Yeah.
It's funny because for the first time since watching the story, I made it my task for this podcast to read it. So that's the first time I'd read. It's the first time I've read a target novelization this century. A classic.
Wow.
target
Well, I hope you've
novelization
updated
this
your spreadsheet.
Yes.
Spreadsheet. What is this witchcraft spreadsheet? It was a typed list. Actually, no, but I confess I didn't actually get to the end of it. But I was really quite shocked with how everything whizzed by. But it was still longer than the one paragraph you got in A Celebration. So there is that. But the editing, we might talk about it later. But the editing of the book is so fast. It is like reading you feel like you're reading a synopsis of the story rather than the actual story.
Yeah. No, it would have been a target for me. Because I was probably not a child that paid an awful lot of attention, I just sort of would have picked it up off the shelf and thought, oh, cool soldiers, that looks cool. Ooh. Let's have that one. Didn't even bother to read the blurb on the back, so you can imagine my surprise when the Doctor gets regenerated at the end of it. I didn't have a clue.
So you weren't that wasn't still a time where you had a list of all of the stories and knew what was where and what you were,
Well,
you'd go into the bookshop hoping to see Dalek Master Plan sitting there.
I did have the L'Officier guide, but that must have been afterwards. And I must have read that thing cover to cover. But yeah, I was completely unaware of the importance of the story when I got it. My mum used to work at a local supermarket, and they had one of those spinny display things with target books next to the tills. So if I'd been good, which wasn't that often, I was allowed to pick one every so often. And I would have got it from there, along with Time Flight, another all-time classic.
That was you managed to get that at the same time.
Yeah, it must have been similarly.
It looks a bit different. It's no soldiers on the front of that. Like you thought, oh, Concord.
Possibly you've been bad possibly that week and she bought you Time Flight.
Yeah, maybe. But possibly my critical faculties weren't really that well developed at that age, because I would have seen that on TV and thought, oh yeah, I must get the book of that one. That was great.
I don't recall. It's funny, in 1982, I don't recall thinking Time Flight was particularly bad. I mean, we weren't really, when I was 10 at the time. It is funny, though, that those two stories are now, War Games and Time Flight, are now inextricably linked in your brain for eternity.
I'm so sorry, War Games.
Yes. Never mind.
Well, I mean, where do we start? It's such an epic, isn't it? I mean, the whole reason it is such an epic, obviously, as is usually the case in this particular period of the show, is that stories were falling through left, right and centre. So the production team had a bit of a last-minute get together and decided, let's make up a story where we plonk loads of different soldiers in different time zones and stretch that out for 10 weeks. And to be fair, it worked out quite well.
Did it? There's I don't know whether this is Terrence Dicks talking, inventing it himself just to sort of fit the narrative, but because there was that thing that they weren't sure whether Doctor Who was actually going to come to an end, right? That they thought that because end of black and white TV on BBC One, as I understand it, and are we just going to ditch it and do something else next year? And he was suggesting that they were literally keeping the story going until they worked out whether the show was going to keep going. Now, is that something that's kind of been invented?
I don't
see how that could possibly work.
Yeah, I feel like they sort of went into it with that question hanging over it, but I guess it must have been specifically episode 8, which is the first time anyone ever mentions the Time Lords. So at that point,
earlier
they
than that,
must
actually.
have worked out. Was it earlier than?
I got noted. I know because I specifically noticed. I thought it was 6. I think because it's actually the security chief and the it's the security chief and the scientist when they're talking. Yeah. Anyway,
right, okay.
Point
So
being,
that-
yeah,
that
really
I
was 6
think
or 8.
is
So
the-
that was my
is the
my
point.
fan need to correct everything. Sorry, I'll let you finish.
Sure. Fine. I think that was the point where they sort of worked out the show was going to go on, and therefore they needed to kind of, bring things to a bit of a conclusion, open up a bit of the backstory. Otherwise, probably you'd have just killed everyone off.
But the reason why I wonder, I mean, maybe it was probably one of those things that when they're sort of thinking about, okay, we this other story's fallen through, there was going to be a 6-part and a 4-part one imagines, let's just make this the whole thing. It's probably at that point that they're sort of going, well, how's this going to end? Like, as they're writing it, we don't know whether the show's going to end, because one of the things, and I noticed it in the comments, which we'll read later from other listeners, is that if it was that they were they just kept it going until they knew what was going to what the future of the show was, it wouldn't be nearly as good as it is. One of the reasons why I think it's successful at 10 episodes, and we can quibble about whether it could have been 8 or whatever, and I think there is a valid comment there, but at 10 episodes it works because every episode you get something new introduced. There's a little twist, a little addition. It's not like you get 2 episodes of, or 2 or 3 episodes of story and it's all happening, and then from 4 to 8 or something, you then just get rinse and repeat, and then nothing new happens. You don't get that at all. Each episode, more or less, does introduce something new, and I think that implies that it was structured out quite well, unless Terrence and Malcolm are just sort of each week going, oh God, what can we... Oh no, we can do this week. Maybe they are very talented, but I don't get that impression.
I think... you go on, Ian.
Well, I was just going to say, and I have to sort of preface everything I'm going to say with saying that everyone's going to say this in all the comments, and I'm not going to say anything original or have any kind of unusual outlier of an opinion. I think this is an absolute masterpiece, and I think the supreme elegance of how it was structured, just unfolding a little bit more each week, was, you could give some writers 12 months to write a 10-part story and they wouldn't come up with something this good and this carefully worked out. So it's the kind of ultimate serendipitous moment, I think, in Doctor Who's history, that it ends in this way, and it falls to Terrence Dicks and Malcolm Hulke to kind of just write any old crap, and what comes out is just a symphony.
Entirely agree. I actually think that most of the best, most of the best stories of the classic era, many of the best stories of the classic era, are written in a hurry, written over a weekend, written in the last week. And I think good writers, any writer worth their salt, I think we all find this with our own work, whatever it happens to be, is that when you are on a tight deadline, you don't faff, you don't kind of second guess yourself. You just go to the go-to. We need to do this. We need to do this. We need to do that. And I think there is something to be said for that. You kind of just go back to basics.
It's very focusing, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's very focusing, and there is something in that.
I think obviously Terrence Dicks and Malcolm Hulke were very close, and I think he trusted Malcolm to really come up with the goods. I think there are some stories that would suffer if you stretched them out this far, unless you had that kind of vision, perhaps, for creating a worthwhile story. But yeah, I think you're right. It's like it's kind of peeling away the layers each episode. I think what probably helps is to me anyway, the cast is one of the best of the season, and even when the stories aren't that great, if you've got a cast that are really buying into it and giving it their all, that can make a huge difference.
100%.
And we've got some fairly notable people in this. I mean, obviously Philip Maddock comes back for his second story of the season, who's barely recognisable. but he becomes quite a sort of mainstay in the 70s. What do you think of him? Are you a fan of his stuff?
Yeah, I think he's great, and I think in this he's particularly good. Whilst in something like Power of Kroll, I think he comes across as a bit bored, and in something like Brandon Morbius,
he's probably quite pissed off because I think he thought he was getting another role for that particular story.
Exactly. And he's a bit earnest in the Crotons, and a bit big in or bigger in something like Brandon Morbius. But I think what I noted down actually against Philip Maddox's name for this story was how underplayed is probably not the right description, but where you've got this very high
kind of brooding intensity, hasn't he?
Yes, and also that he's doing a lot of business. Like there are times he's got this stillness. He's decided who the warlord character is. He's thought about that. He's performing all the lines as if they're Shakespeare in terms of this is real writing. This is not just some bit of tat that I've been asked to do. It's like when he's having those conversations in the war room in the control center, and like there's one moment where I think it's when the war chief is saying the doctor will help us now and yada yada yada, and the way he sort of sits on the chair on that little stool and sort of looks to one side and then looks back at him and going, all right, we'll do this, or whatever the line is just beautiful. It's taking one line of dialogue and actually performing it. Do you know what I mean? Rather than and not in a look at me kind of way. He's actually, oh my God, the character has thought about this and decided, yes, we'll do this. It's a small thing, but there are many, many examples of that, and I think he adds so much to that very one could argue one-dimensional, what would have been on paper a fairly one-dimensional role.
Yeah, and for me at least, the other sort of real standout is Edward Brayshaw.
Oh yes,
as the war chief.
Yes,
or as Ian and I would know him, Mr. Meeker from Rent-A-Ghost.
All right, I've never seen that, I'm afraid.
You guys never got that. I mean, you got stuff like The Goodies, but you never got Rent-A-Ghost?
I have no idea. I can't. I'm not going to claim that we never got it. It just may have not been on a.
Well, it might not have been, appointment viewing in Australia. No.
Well, there was only, at the risk of having an aside here, there's only one appointment viewing for me, and that was at 6:30 Monday to Thursday or Monday to Friday, depending on what they did on the ABC. And I would watch often. That's how I got to know things like The Goodies and the Kenny Everett Show, Monkey, because they would either occupy the same slot or they'd be on at 6 o'clock. So you would have to watch the program before. So anything that was on at any other time was meaningless drivel to me. Anyway, point being, Edward Brayshaw, spectacular. It's great that they delineate between the warlord race, whatever they're called, the warlords, having a particular look, a particular style of performance as well, which I think is really quite interesting, and it's not something that you necessarily notice the first time you watch it. And then Edward Brayshaw with this very heightened acting style and the wonderful pointy beard makeup thing, and he again he's chewing the scenery, but he's chewing the scenery in a really balanced and good way. It's like every line is chewed in this wonderful expressive
He's very
way.
cat-like.
Very cat-like, absolutely. A masterful performance, really captivating.
And interesting that you say masterful, because
masterful,
in my head canon, he very much regenerates into Delgado off screen at the end of this, and most people feel like that as well. Also, it's interesting. The more, or every time I watch the story, the older I get, the more I suspect, and I have no empirical data for this, but I suspect that Edward Brayshaw as the war chief was just the most beautiful human being who ever walked the earth. I mean, he looked amazing. No one else can pull off a dodgy little tunic and, a mascaraed beard like that. He looked gorgeous.
He's also wearing eye makeup, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think so.
Really like proper, like enough makeup, not for just for television purposes, but to actually look like he's wearing makeup on television on 625 monochrome. It really quite, and it really adds to the look of the character. No, there's a lot of at first you think that there's not a lot of thought that's been given to that part, that the sort of the warlord half of the story in terms of production design and performance and everything else. That was kind of my response when I first saw the actual story. I totally have seen the light on that since that initial viewing.
Yeah, it's a shame he never came back, but I think he's such a standout in this one. Shall we? We're going to kind of address the elephant in the room
I feel
in
we
terms
should.
of the casting.
There's an
I
elephant.
feel we should.
Yeah, okay, go on then, Ian. You've nailed it there.
Are you? So
A stupid fool? No.
I'm. Yeah. So.
I mean, yes, but that's not
So picture
the
the
point.
scene. The phone rings. Hello, Mrs. Bree speaking. Oh, James, love, you've got the part in Doctor Who. That is very good news. I mean, was this a choice, or was this just how he spoke and delivered lines? Because he was very.
To be fair, I don't think it would be Mrs. Bree who would be answering the phone. But anyway,
Well,
let's not go down
I
that rabbit
make
hole. But
stuff up as I go along. I don't know. But given that his performance was not radically different 20 years later in Trial of a Time Lord, you have to wonder how he. I mean, so cards on the table. I fucking love him. I think he's brilliant in this. I love every single line he delivers.
Oh, we can still be friends.
But I don't know who went out on the limb to say, yeah, we're going to get him to do it like that. Because
it's definitely a choice, isn't it?
It's 100% a choice. Yeah, yeah. Because I don't think the Trial of the Time Lord performance is the same. I think he's a doddery old man in that performance, more so. It is funny because, again, that first viewing, you're going, what the hell is this actor doing? This is awful, this is terrible, and we're all joking. You know, we used to put to the clips of joke tapes, and it's like, you know, the number of times that you'd have on repeat, what a stupid fool you are. And that became sort of a line for the ages. I actually think, but it goes back to what I was saying before about they've made a stylistic choice about that race in rehearsals, because they are all giving a very wooden is not the right expression, like a very robotic. I don't know. You know, the scientist is quite stiff. Philip Maddock gives a certain elevated stiffness to his performance. That's not the right word, but, you know, in that way. One thing you have to say, Ian, is that it is utterly consistent. The performance of James Bree is and I was thinking that again when I was watching it for this, it is utterly consistent across the entire story. He's not deciding in episode 7 to do something else because he's bored or because he doesn't think it's working or whatever. A decision was made and they stick to it, and that's what they do. And I just think it's actually gold. I think it takes a bit of getting used to, but it's actually gold.
And I mean, you know, you watch episode 1 and it's great, and you watch episode 2, whatever, but when he first appears, and I can't remember when, 2 or 3, that's the moment you remember that you've got, you know, this character in this story to enjoy again. And I almost cheered, you know, sitting there on the laptop in the bedroom trying not to wake my wife up. But I almost roared with, yes, it's James Bree.
Yeah.
I am very
brilliant.
Happy.
I love the line. I love is when I think when Edward Brayshaw was trying to do the double crossing routine with the Doctor, and he says, you know, I don't trust you, and James Bree goes, the feeling's mutual. Just, as I said, every line utterly consistently delivered, and I knew it. Just superb.
It's almost like he's travelled into the future and looked at the tapes of Genesis of the Daleks and just looked at that one line that Nida delivers. Thank you. That's what I wanted to know. And it's just based his entire performance on that. It's incredible.
Nida of the 60s. There you go.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's high praise.
It is very high praise. Very high praise.
Yeah. Where do this TARDIS team sit for you, Simon? Are they up there with some of your favourites, or?
Yes. Well, look, I love Zoe. I absolutely love Zoe. I loved Zoe even before, and you know, it was always, you know, Victoria was the best of the Troughton girls, and that was kind of in an era when we only had like 3 of the episodes. And then when more of them come back, you realise, oh yeah, she's fine, she's great, but you know, there's nothing sort of godlike about season 5. Zoe always appealed to me, the computer program aspect, the nerdy aspect. I think Fraser by now, unfortunately, is phoning it in, if I can be kind. And even Troughton's obviously starting to have a bit of is this over yet kind of.
He's a very tired man. He's got a lot on the go.
Exactly, a lot on the go. Yeah. Or he's going a lot or something. I don't know.
He really is. Yeah.
But look, I love Jamie and Zoe. For me, the Troughton pairing is Jamie and Zoe rather than Jamie and Victoria. For me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think you're a massive outlier there, Simon. To be honest,
not anymore. But I was once.
Yes, it's funny how fashions change and people's opinions develop over time. That's good though. That's what it's all about. In terms of the 10 episodes, it's kind of long, but I don't think it's. I didn't find it a trudge to get through it. As part of my way of trying to subtly get my son interested in Doctor Who, I just said to him, because we had a bit of a wobble where he saw the trailer for the Star Beast and got totally freaked out when Catherine Tate poked Beep the Meep in the eye. So that was, Doctor Who was not on the card at all. But I said to him, I've got this really big story, and it's got no sort of really scary aliens in it as such, but do you want to watch? And he was like, yeah, okay then. So I thought, we'll just try 1 episode, see how he goes. And good Lord, we watched 4 episodes back to back, and he was absolutely thrilled by it. And then, I'll be honest, we got onto the next time we started watching, and after another couple of episodes of running to and fro, I think it was starting to lose some of its appeal. But I think he thoroughly enjoyed the final episode, which we watched earlier yesterday. So I think his personal rating was a 7 out of 10.
Ooh, how old is he? Sorry,
he's 10.
10. Yeah. Look, yeah. I think that's fair criticism for what is effectively the target audience, or maybe the bottom end of
and really we should have been watching it one episode every few days rather than trying to binge them in one go, I think.
But I think it does go back to what I was saying before about the 8. Could it be 8? Yeah, I think in an ideal world it probably would be 8 because it does, whilst I think it gets off to a rip-roaring start and keeps that going for a while, I didn't note down the episode where I thought, it's starting to, this is the point, 6 and 7 or something, where you kind of compress that and then get back on track with episode 8, 9 and 10. But nevertheless, again, it's like, I know that times change, but it's so, you can't possibly watch this in one hit and expect to not be comatose by the end of it. I mean, it's a big ask. Having said that, I did watch it. I love putting episodes on my iPad for long haul travel, which one tends to do when one lives in Australia. And I put the War Games on for a trip to Europe and expecting to watch a couple of episodes and then, do something else, have a sleep, meal, blah, 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 watch one of the plane films, blah, blah, blah. But I actually discovered that I watched 5 episodes in a row. I actually just watched it in 2 halves. And obviously in the context of a plane flight which is hours and hours long, and you haven't got like a whole lot of other things you could otherwise be doing. Sure. That's a bit easy. But nevertheless, I was surprised by how, and that was probably the previous time I watched it to watching it for this, by how engaging it was, regardless of how familiar one is with it. As I said, it keeps introducing something each episode, and the fact that you get General Smythe opening pulling the portrait back in episode 1 to reveal the screen. I think we're only 10 minutes in to episode 1, and you'd think that you could sort of see a scenario where, okay, we've got to write this 10 episode story. Okay, you could see a situation where you don't get any sense of aliens in the first episode and a half, and the cliffhanger to part 2 is Smythe opening the panel, and there is this screen. It's just we're in a historical, but they didn't do that. They introduced the alien menace. Now we might still be in World War One at that point. In fact, we probably think we are in World War One still at that point, and there's just an alien presence. But it's great that it starts it drag, and that's what helps you draw you in and go, what's going on here.
And also, I feel if you are going to really go for it and have this 10-episode structure, you sure as hell have got to have an ending that really is fit for that story. And I think they really did a great job of wrapping it up at the end. I thought that was very well handled.
The fact that episode 9, in terms of for the scenario that's in the War Games setting itself before you get to Gallifrey or the home planet, you do, and I think this is what a lot of the Pertwee stories start to do really well, mostly, is that the final episode, and we'll call this episode 9 for the purposes of that section, uses the entirety of the episode to conclude the story, whereas sometimes before that, and certainly afterwards, it wasn't the last episode, it was like the last 5 minutes or the last 10 minutes of the last episode, which you get this sort of rush, oh my god, it's over, and then that's the end. It is this great, and actually watching it, I only finished it last night, 8, 9 and 10, and the sense of foreboding that you do actually get, even now, even after all these years, even having watched it 10 times, however many times I've watched it, totally familiar with it, the sense of foreboding and the sort of sickness in my stomach when the Doctor starts to decide he's got to call the Time Lords, and the War Chief's reaction and it really it really builds so well in that episode 9, I think.
Ian, what do you think of these Time Lords? Do you prefer your Time Lords to be more sort of Robert Holmesy and
I just
a bit more Tory, or would you prefer just sort of superhumans from an unknown planet?
I feel like these were like the night shift of the Time Lords. They weren't wearing the collars. They didn't have enough.
Now there's the episode title.
There was no robes. There were robes, but they were very. They were not
very swooshy, were they?
They weren't swooshy. They were kind of drab, I think. But
drapey, not swooshy.
Yeah, exactly. No, it was nice to see a slightly younger Chancellor Goth and his two friends with very bad hair. I'd regenerate on principle if I.
That was a beautiful comb over, wasn't it? I mean, I could dream of hair like that, honestly.
Yeah. So I mean, it was interesting. I like the way that 60s Who ends the way it begins, with like a standalone one episode which kind of it does something different. So you've got this and Unearthly Child, and in terms of it could still have been the very last episode, and it wouldn't have needed to be a word or a note different either way. I like the way it was done. I'm not sure that the fear that the War Chief and the Doctor both demonstrate throughout the story, the fear of the Time Lords, was justified by these three really, quite nice, centrist, thoughtful guys.
I mean, they do take the warlord out of reality, don't they?
They do, but that's
and
not.
They can zap you with their eyes.
Exactly.
Trevor Martin can at least.
Yeah, that's good, and that's fair.
That was
enough.
Quite creepy when he did the eye thing.
Yeah, it would have been nice. Actually, that's the point. If the Doctor could have done that all along, why is he ever getting locked up and imprisoned and threatened with death? He can just do the big.
Who needs the sonic screwdriver and the psychic paper when you've got like Trevor Martin eyes?
Yeah, exactly. That's a.
I think he must have skipped that lesson at the academy.
Exactly. Always scarving off that one.
Yeah.
Probably had a couple of lady friends on the go, no doubt.
But yeah,
who can say?
It was wonderful. It was a great ending.
Do you have any particular favourite moments that really stand out for you?
I mean, leaving to one side every single line delivery from James Breen, and just how gorgeous Brayshaw looked. I really like. I think it was Noel Coleman as General Smythe. He had a very angry delivery.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Von Wyk is pretty good too, I think.
Von Wyk is excellent.
He's great.
Hubert Reese pops up again in that sort of pompous little fat puffin role that he's so often given throughout his appearances in Doctor Who. The producer's wife was very good, I thought, and Carstairs was very strong and kind of did a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of seeming like he was really invested in the story and he really gave his shit, which kind of balanced out Fraser Hines's I'm just going to do the step
Not
forward
so
and
much.
tap you in the chest. And, So there
Carstairs was great.
A lot of strength and depth in that cast.
Yeah, I was really disappointed that Lady Jennifer doesn't return at the end, towards the end. I really liked her as a character. And I remember thinking this when reading the novelisation. You sort of want to see them get together and go off and have a cup of tea somewhere. And then that's
be a big finish. There must be a big finish where they get together and have adventures.
I should hope so. I'm sure there is.
Maybe she teams up with Dodo because she got done dirty in her final scene as well, didn't she?
She's probably working for Unit now. She's probably the Lynx, actually. But that's the great thing about classic era Who is that you have great as secondary characters like Carstairs and Jennifer and the war, all that sort of thing. Whereas you just don't get as much time to have that to develop to build that kind
cram it all in, haven't
they? Which is one of my beefs with Matt Newshape. Anyway, that's a whole other discussion. No, they're great. I think my favourite scene would have to probably be the sequence in the lecture when the war chief recognises the Doctor and there's that flash of recognition between them. I actually think that's one of the things that I wondered when reading the novelisation as a kid. Even I had enough sort of sense of how novelisations work that's maybe something that was kind of retconned in when they did the novelisation, and I was so delighted to see it on screen. And I think the way those two actors and the way it's directed, and you get the shots are clean, like the vision mixer hasn't pressed the wrong button at the wrong moment. It is a beautiful moment of mutual recognition, and stop them, and run Zoe. That's probably my favourite.
I mean, I would have chosen that, but I think certainly you mentioned earlier the scene very early on in episode 1 where we have the big reveal of the monitor. I think that's such a mind-blowing thing the first time you see it. If you're not aware of what the story is, it's fantastic. It really gets you in the mood to find out what's going on in this story, and I think they played it so well. What do you think of the TARDIS stroke? Are they side rats?
Side rats, yes.
Side rats, yeah. I mean,
which the novelisation actually expands.
They're okay.
I need to point this. Yes, they are.
I can't remember.
Where is it? No.
It's been a long time since I read it.
Oh, I've got it noted down here because I thought, wow, yes, I knew that it was spelt out. Come on. Oh, I put it in the novelisation section. Novelisation, yes. Space and intertime directional robot all-purpose transporter.
Directional?
It happens every time. I mean, that's worthy of Russell T Davies, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, talk about shoehorning it in, yeah.
One thing in the story that did kind of leap out to me on this particular rewatch was that scene near the end where Carstairs is manning the phones and he's getting phone calls from all the other zones.
Time zones.
This zone has fallen. The Roman zone has fallen. Who's ringing him from the Roman zone and on what? How is that a thing?
Yes, I'm here in Crimea, and I can report that. I did wonder that, but maybe we can imagine that they've popped back through the time mists and they've gone to, I don't know, a public phone that's sitting there in no man's land and rung the chateau.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll go with that. Anything else we wanted to bring up before we wrap it up, Mr. Ian?
I would just like to, as a sort of side note, just say that for me this is the first example of bingeable television that I'm aware of. There were probably lots of other things, but for me, these 10 weeks of 1969, this is something I could watch in one go.
Wow.
And I struggle with some of the four-parters from that precede this, but this is just, again, because I think it's so, like you were saying about the reveal of the monitor in part one, absolutely didn't need to be there for another couple of weeks, but the fact that it was, and you knew from the word go that this story was going to build and build and build, and it wasn't something they were sort of desperate. I mean, it was something they were desperately making up as they went along, but they did it so well that for me, this is the best story of the 60s. This is the only story you need from the 60s, and this is just a phenomenal piece of television. And I think if Doctor Who had started with the War Games, it would have been exactly the same.
Wow.
So are you saying that your stance on Troughton has softened somewhat? Because you have been somewhat critical of his
It's
characterisation?
It's difficult because obviously I've been aware of this story, and I first watched it about 30 years ago, and so his performance, he didn't tit about so much in this because clearly the actor was a bit run down. The story was a lot higher stakes and a lot more serious, so there was less of that kind of falling back on clowning and making his sex noises and so on. So for me, this was conveniently his finest hour in the role.
Nice.
I mean, we had a lovely moment when I was watching with my son, and he was loving when Troughton was tricking James Bree's character into adjusting the mind control machine and making it.
The scientist.
Turn around to me. He's like, sorry, the scientist. Yeah, and he said, "Dad, is he tricking him?" Like, yeah, that's his MO. And I don't think he'd really seen that side to him before, which was nice.
There is one thing actually we haven't talked about, and that's the production design of the Warlords base.
Oh wow! I mean, that's it could have been Austin Powers, really. Couldn't it? That's amazing
with those lines and stuff. I think that's one of the things.
Yeah,
that
it's fantastic.
That's one of the things that actually probably shocked me most when I watched the actual story. I don't think I was ready for that in 1990 or 89 or whatever it was when I first saw it. I thought, this is not very good. Although I will say, I think the budget.
Oh, I adore it. I think
no,
it's fantastic.
I like it now, but I think the one thing that does let it down is, and this is not atypical of Doctor Who generally back in the day. Although I don't think they managed to hide the lack of budget as well as they have in other stories. I mean, obviously when you're doing a World War One chateau in France, that's easy. You've got all this stuff in stock at the BBC, whereas a lot of the Warlords base doesn't feel, and this Gallifrey as well doesn't feel substantial. Like there's a lot of kind of drapes and sheets of plastic and even inside the side drat. There's too much. We are just in a black space with some drapey things here, and it's a bit. I mean, I can see what maybe they were trying to do. They didn't want to have sort of like boring walls and so on. But I think that's where it starts to sort of wobble a bit too much in terms of the look for me. Do we like the little fridge magnets that they use to control things?
Yeah. I thought that's such a cool scene as well, where he's like shrinking the dimensions of the travel machine as well. It's really cool.
There's a logic to it, but someone's thought about that. They've actually, because the Doctor then does the same thing. He pushes them back up again.
Yes.
I hate it when the actors or the director hasn't noticed that in rehearsal or something and said, no. If you do this to make it turn on, you have to do that to make it turn off. And that's the kind of thing that pissed children off as well. That's the kind of thing that would piss me off as a child.
Well, Hartnell was a big
advocate of that,
exponent of making sure that every single lever on the TARDIS console he remembered what each one did, and absolutely. I would imagine probably alongside your concerns about some of the sets, possibly another reason for the principal cast not perhaps wanting to do it anymore was having to sort of crawl around on their hands and knees in a rubbish dump with lots of barbed wire and rats and other things. It's probably not going to... Yeah, it's not going to make you think, actually, maybe I will stay on just for one more season.
I think I'm going to bring this up in my appraisal.
I mean, it doubled very well as a No Man's Land, but yeah, it can't have been an awful lot of fun.
No, I imagine not.
Simon, anything else that you wanted to mention?
No, just the fact that it's a great end to the 60s. It's the perfect... we're so lucky that... Well, we're so lucky that it exists in its entirety, for a start. You know how sometimes you get a sense that, like, there's an illusion, they say, that history is inevitable. Various big things, they appear inevitable in hindsight. The War Games appears inevitable. As a Doctor Who fan growing up in the 80s, it appears to be the inevitable culmination of the black and white years. And yet it was not planned. Now that's remarkable. It's the neatest, as Ian, you were sort of suggesting before, the fact that episode 10 is a standalone, and like the fact that Unearthly Child 1's a standalone, it just somehow creates this perfect thing, which not only fits within two Doctors worth of stories, it fits within the 1960s decade, it fits within all the black and whites. You'd think that this had been planned from 1963.
No, it's a wonderful way to see out the 60s. So, unless we've got anything else to say, I think we should wrap this up and give this mother a score. And I am going to come to Ian first. Ian, what are you going to give this one out of 10?
11.
Oh, my giddy aunt.
Oh, crumbs.
You pulled a Ben Schneider on us. Okay, right. Well, no pressure, Simon, but what would you like to give this one out of 10?
Look, I'm going to give it 2 marks. I'm going to give it the emotional mark, which is 10 out of 10.
Okay.
But then I'm going to give it I'm going to try and sit back and go, now, steady on, calm down. And really, it's a 9 because you know, I'm very economical with my 10s, and I'm very I'm even more economical with my 11s. But I think 9. Let's call it 9.5 if you're allowing half marks, because I think it has to live. I think it has to lose half a mark for not for being slightly overlong, even though I love it and I love the length of it. Some of the production things, which I think, that they could have handled that a bit better. But otherwise, I think it's one of the best. Absolutely, it's one of the. I don't think it's the best 60s story, but I think it's absolutely one of the best, and it has a very, very important place in my heart.
Very well said. Okay. I'm going to give the story 8 out of 10, but I'm going to notch it up to a 9 just for Edward Brayshaw. I mean, that's just... He's fantastic. He's one of the best things in it. And
fantastic, yeah.
Yeah.
I know what you're into, Ian.
Ian's in love.
I know.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's finally happened.
Your wife's going to be furious when she finds out.
She doesn't listen. It's fine.
There you go. Well, that's what we thought of the War Games. Let's hear what you guys think with some listener feedback.
I've got mail.
Okay, first up, we have heard from Fraser Gregory, Champion of the Damned. And Fraser says, much like my correspondence to you, it's too long, way too long, but unlike my ramblings, it's expertly written, so you don't always notice. It's an absolute masterclass in plotting by Uncle Terence and Mac Hulk, who drip characters and plot developments across the 10 episodes. As an exercise in spinning plates, it's unsurpassed. But it's also a masterclass in making the most of a tight budget. You hardly noticed that at one point there wasn't the money for sets and they had to use drapes. Well, Simon noticed. And an epic and satisfying conclusion to Troughton's era that writes its 3 leads out with an emotional heft. Yes, excellent. Thank you, Fraser. Next up, we've heard from Adrian Berry. Hello, Adrian. Adrian says, defining moment for Troughton when he recognises the war chief and the story ramps up to 11. Yeah, I think that's a lot of people's favourite moments. Thank you, Adrian. And now we've heard from Etapalak. And they say, it's brilliant and suitably epic, with a host of memorable guest actors. The only thing that stops it being an all-timer is the repetitive, brackets, stock music throughout. I can't remember
No, it's
now.
Dudley. It's Dudley.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah. Oh, well. He can't win every single one, can he? Well, there's always City of Death. Anyway, next up we've heard from Philip Nichols. And Philip says, an old favourite, saw it on double video for the first time in 1990. Oh, well, thanks for making us all feel very old there, Philip. Next up, we have heard from Anthony Carroll. Anthony says, love episode 1, 2, and 9 and 10, but maybe heresy, but 10 eps is too long. But a great and sad end to the Troughton era. Heartbreaking goodbye for Jamie and Zoe, and he awards it 8 out of 10. Thank you, Anthony. Oh, he also says Smythe and the Warlord were superb characters, and Lieutenant Carstead is great. The downside is the Rebels. Oh, I don't think he's quite such a fan of them. Yeah, because some of those characterizations could be a tad problematic. Let's just skate over that. Next up, we've heard from the lovely Simon Hart. Hello, Si.
Hello, Simon.
He says, sometimes last-minute works of desperation turn into something inspired and incredible. This could be the premise of a whole series, but instead they have one epic Doctor Who story. Yeah, he's nailed it there. Thank you, Simon. Next up, we've heard from Michael Storm. Michael says, very much a New Who-style big finale with huge stakes, which not only satisfactorily closes off the Second Doctor's era, but all of Doctor Who to that point, and could easily have been the last ever episode. However, it skillfully plants the seeds of what Who was to become. If you think about the purpose of the games within the story, it doesn't really make a lot of sense as to what army the Warlords will have. Are they just collecting soldiers for different scenarios, or is it a weird mix of multi-time zone soldiers? Yes, I think possibly that's one of those things where if you think about it a bit too much, it might seem a bit odd.
Best not to.
No. Just let it wash over you and enjoy it for what it is. Okay, now we have heard from Derek Robinson. Derek says, I actually think this is Philip Maddox's weakest Who performance. Still better than James Bree, though, who is probably the only thing that lets the story down in any respect. Ooh, them's fighting words.
They are. Can't have that.
No.
I thought you were supposed to edit these comments for taste.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Simon. I didn't get the memo, sorry. Now we have heard from Clatoxel. And Clatoxel says, great story. 9 and 10 are one of the best couple of episodes in the classic series. Love a lot of the side characters. Engrossing story, but it could easily lose 4 or 5 episodes. There's a lot of running around in circles in the first half. Yeah, I mean, it's, your mileage may vary on whether you enjoy that or not, I guess. And we've now heard from Kieran, KJ Evans 2. And they say, too long? What a stupid fool you are. Sorry, what a stupid fool you are. I'm not going to do it. I'm not.
I still think you rushed.
Do the voice.
What a stupid... Sorry, I know we pressed the time.
That was uncalled for, Mark.
Sorry. The Troughton era's tour de force. Great performances, back up with wonderful writing, direction and music. 10 episodes of 10 out of 10. I think it's fair to say that Kieran's a fan. Thank you, Kieran. Glenn Fitzgerald writes, and they say, my first experience of this story was the Target novel that I read about 1991. I absolutely loved it. I was a bit dubious when the VHS came out because of the length of it, but I think it's a fast-paced story and every episode is enjoyable, so keeps me loving it. Thank you for that. We've got a nice, short, pithy one here from Andrew Wooding. Andrew says, the 10 episodes feel like an after-school ITV children's serial, and that's a compliment. Our next correspondent is Old and Peculiar. And they say, love the War Games. I know what people say it's too long. There's a lot of filler, but for me, it's great. Yeah, there's a lot of love for this story. Dieter K has been in touch. Dieter says, my fave complete Troughton story for sure. 10 eps of my fave TARDIS team in full flight is wonderful. We finally get the Time Lords and another renegade as well in the War Chief, plus fab Philip Maddock as the Warlord. It's a pizza with the lot. Delicious. Thanks, Dieter. Next up, we've heard from James Morton. And James says, it's the story that introduces the Time Lords, introduces the Doctor to a problem he can't fix, so he has to call the Time Lords for help. Fixes the idea that he's a renegade and an outcast who stole an old TARDIS. We see how ruthless the Doctor's people are in fixing problems. It has an extended running time due to some other show getting cancelled early. You could cut 4 episodes out of this and it wouldn't hurt the premise at all. Yeah. And next up we've heard from, it's cut off the name, I'm sorry. It's Thomas and Lady something. I've never been so engaged in a Doctor Who story before. This is a must-watch for any fan, and honestly, it's a good story to start with if you want to watch classic Who. It shows just how amazing it can be, and it's one of the greatest stories of all time. Thank you for your correspondence. Another short, sweet one here from Robert Merle. Robert says, at 10 episodes, this series always felt overlong to me, but that ending is worth it. Thank you, Robert. We've heard from Paul Hull. And Paul says, there are many things I love about this story. The cast, such strong and memorable performances. The music that really adds to the epic feel of it all. The set design throughout, and those blaring title cards that introduce each episode. Yeah, we didn't mention that. That's quite a striking thing about, there's a few stories that do that in the 60s, and that's definitely one of the more memorable ones. Next up, we've heard from Paul Downey. Any relation? I can still remember the cover of the Target novelisation. It was the first time I, in inverted commas, watched the story. Yeah, I think there's a few of us of a certain vintage that feel the same way there. Thank you. And we've heard from Craig Potter. Craig says, I love every bit and I don't even think it's over long. Thank you, Craig. Next, we've heard from Mark Palmer. Good story, but a little long for the story it tells. So there's two very differing views there. Next up, we've heard from Alex Gibbons. And they say, it's a mammoth story, but a great one. And it's a fabulous regeneration into the John Pertwee. Well, we don't quite get to see him, but yeah, I get the gist. Oh, he wants us to give a shout out for his new YouTube channel. The Alex Gibbons to Target podcast. Well, there you go. You've had a plug there, Alex. Next, we've heard from The Geek Inside. And they say, it was the perfect swan song for the second Doctor. He was always goofy and aloof throughout most of his tenure, which suited his Doctor. But in the end, he had to step up and paid the price. Yeah. Next up, we've heard from Mestor the Magnificent. And they say, a legendary production that is far too long and padded, and yes, I understand why. In an ideal world, it would be a 4-parter followed by a 2-part coda, full of magic moments, but a special shout out to Philip Maddock's Warlord, and also this beautifully played scene. So he showed a photo of the Doctor saying goodbye to his companions, which was very sad. Ben W's been in touch. I think this is possibly the least love we have for this story. All in all, an extremely boring, overlong story that just so happens to be huge in terms of establishing the most critical elements of the Doctor's lore. They are not a fan. There you go. We're a broad church.
I don't know if we're that broad.
Okay, right. Ian's going to meet you in a pre-agreed location, and he's going to have a fight with you over it. He's handy.
Definitely have to take this one outside.
Yeah. Getting down to the last few for me now, where you've heard from the Metabolist 2. Metabilis. Oh. The Metabilis 2 podcast. We'll settle on Metabilis. They say the War Games is tremendous, but it leaves me with more questions than answers, like, what if this serial didn't have to cover for 1 or 2 other stories? What if Brayshaw's War Chief was truly the Master? What if the Doctor used the side rats to return the soldiers to their own time? What if Dix and Hulk didn't invent the Time Lords? What if the Doctor, Zoe and Jamie had gotten away? What if Troughton had returned for season 7? Still, Troughton goes out on top. Love it. And that was from David from the Metabilis 2 podcast. Thank you, David. And lastly from me, we've heard from David Moss. David says, Chibnall must really hate this story. Not sure what he's barking at there, but okay, well, thanks for getting in touch. And before we head over to our esteemed guest Simon, let's hear the latest nugget of genius from our friend Andy Moore.
The BBC Canteen. The Rent-A-Ghost cast take a well-earned break.
Dobbin! Over there!
For the last time, Edward, it's John and William, not Dobbin.
Oh, for fuck's sake, Edward.
Well, if you will roll up to the canteen still dressed in your costume, I don't know what you expect. Park your hooves anyway and help me with the crossword.
OK, then.
Right then, this one here. 5 and 7. Masterful actor. I haven't got a clue.
Roger Delgado.
I'm sorry, did your arse say something then?
Yes, my ass. I mean, William said Roger Delgado, the master from Doctor Who.
Right, you got it. Masterful actor. Roger Delgado.
Doctor Who? Roger Delgado? Don't talk to me about bloody Doctor Who and Roger Delgado. That part should have been mine. I played basically the same character in the War Games, you know. Oh, Roger though. Roger was a lovely fella, I had not a word said against him, but it was my bloody part.
Yeah, that's right, you were in Doctor Who, weren't you? We love Doctor Who, don't we, William?
Well, bloody love it.
Don't suppose you're still in touch with any of the production team, are you? We would love to be in Doctor Who.
Well, bloody love it.
Oh, you'd love to be in Doctor Who, would ya? Don't be so bloody ridiculous. What kind of a fucking idiot would put a pantomime horse in Doctor Who?
Yes, you're right, Edward. It is a stupid idea, really, isn't it?
Stupid idea.
Oh, yeah. That's really bloody stupid.
Well, that was fantastic. Thanks, Andy. Another comedy classic.
The imagination is spectacular. I look forward to those.
Yeah, he's the star of the show.
Almost as much as what you guys have to say.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't blame you. He's far cleverer and way more funny than we are. But yeah, thanks, Andy. I really appreciate that. Okay, Simon. We have had absolutely tons of feedback, so thank you all for getting in touch. Who have you heard from?
There is tons, and it's no surprise that there's tons of feedback. My first one is from James H., otherwise known as Fit Geek UK, and I think you certainly are. The appearance of the Roman soldiers is one hell of a plot twist, and the final episode is sheer magic. Yes, it's padded in a few places, but it's still a gem, and doesn't need any editing down to 75 minutes if the rumours are true. I think that's a reference to a rumour that's the next colorised story. What I've heard is not 75 minutes though.
Okay.
But even so, I don't know how short they can possibly make it. Jamie Bate says they really pulled it out of the bag to wrap up the entire era. The music is great. Not watched it in a while, but it doesn't feel its length at all. The ending of the Doctor floating away headless is spooky, really. Imagine if this was the end.
Yeah, it's quite unsettling, isn't it?
I don't think it is, yeah, and just imagine. But imagine if it was the end. I mean, none of us would know each other. None of us would encounter each other. You know, it's not like we'd all be fans of this kind of obscure 1960s science fiction program. Dr. Uncle Beard says the War Games has the best version of the Time Lords. Godlike, unknowable, omnipotent, and powerful. There's no escaping them. As a dramatic device, it's brilliant. Bobby Dazzler says, I adore it, and if this was how the show ended, thankfully it wasn't, it would have been a wonderful way to wrap it all up. The who had been answered, and the future was up to the viewer's imaginations. Tom says, nothing before or after tops or matches this story. Everyone is acting their heart out and it flies by. You know it's the finale, but you're still in shock when the credits roll. If Disney wanted to make a movie adaptation of the show, The War Games would be perfect. 10 out of 10. Dave Kitchen from the Doctor Who show says, was in awe of this, seeing it at a local club meeting in 1988, and still in awe now. I worry, Dave, about the comfort of the chairs you were sitting on to sit through those 10 episodes, but I'll have to find out the full story later. Warlord and War Chief are two amazingly written and performed villains. Build-up of the story is excellent. You really feel everything slowly getting out of the Doctor's ability to fix. Superb Troughton finale. Luke Sims Jenkins says, my first Troughton story, which I'd rented at the video store. Did I know all about Jamie and Zoe? No, but I cried just the same when they got sent home. Anyone who says it's too long is wrong. Now, where is the big finish Unbound where the second Doctor chooses one of those faces at the end? Yes, I always wondered about those other faces. Richard Smith says it ought to be too long and rambling, but incredibly it seems to use the 10 episodes well to tell a complex and nuanced story with a few scenery chewing moments. And we all need a few scenery chewing moments.
Certainly do.
That's my aside there, not his. Yeah. Great way for Troughton, Hines and Padbury to bow out. So many great turns. Maddock is unrecognisable but brilliant. Thoroughly agree there. Daniel Knight says, a work of desperation that's become a well-regarded epic. The end of Doctor Who as it was and a new beginning, pushing the series in a different direction. It's well-directed and largely well-acted with a memorable score by Dudley Simpson. David Gillespie Pratt says, it's a suitably epic end to a classic era. Yes, it is a long story, but why is that painted as a bad thing? Hear. Long stories can be entertaining, dramatic and exciting. This is one of my favourite Doctor Who stories. A short one from Daniel Britzuela. Apologies if I've pronounced that wrong. Daniel, and that's phenomenal and epic. I think that sums it up well.
Very well.
Another Daniel Knight tweet. No, it's the same Daniel Knight that we've had. Do we get 2 bites of the cherry?
I guess so.
No, I think this is supposed to be part 2 of his previous one. As
sorry.
an aside, says Daniel, as an aside, I see some people think it's boring, whilst complaining about it being 10 episodes. I don't want to be all gatekeeperish, but maybe watch it an episode at a time as intended. Don't binge it, or, shudder, watch it at 1.5 speed.
Ugh.
My heart's palpitating as I read that. Young people these days.
I know, bloody kids.
Savour it and enjoy the plot twists. Savour it indeed. Andrew Willis says, totally agree. I started an ongoing rewatch of the series, 1 episode per week, some years ago, and the 60 stories, particularly the longer ones, improved immeasurably. Stu Wolf 2 says, an amazing 10-part story that oddly doesn't feel its length. Zach Jags says, all-time great with a pretty fantastic guest cast and the main cast being at their usual standard. It also looks really good with the sets and costumes. Now, I'm almost certainly going to get the pronunciation of this next one wrong. Gollydones? Gollydones? Exclamation point. David Saville steals the show. Poor guy is abducted by aliens, put in a Matrix situation, and gets his brain zapped as people wear funny glasses, but he takes it all in stride like it's just another day at the office. And we never learn if he finds Lady Jennifer. Crying emoji. And there's a great screen grab from Casters in one of the early episodes where he says, and the caption is, one that affects our minds. Great line and great delivery from David Saville there. Just on the glasses, we didn't actually touch on that.
No, there's some very unusual spectacles in this one.
Yeah, but have you seen the extended Silver Nemesis where the Doctor gets out of the tower, the Windsor Castle or something, by putting on a pair of glasses and basically does a war game style, you will let us go kind of thing.
It's such a great shorthand as well, isn't it, for the whole hypnotism thing? Literally, as soon as you see them reach for the glasses, you're right, okay, I know what's going to happen now.
And then Dudley goes,
well, yeah.
Anyway, back to the feedback. I need a username. And I think he does, or she does. It's a bit long. It probably would have been best at 8 parts, but still very good. Tall Mike BS. Okay. I get that they couldn't do this for the show at the time, but what I'd love to see done with that fleeing scene is to overlay some atmospherics and then pre- and post-lap the video to really mess with the viewer's perception, to give more weight to the Time Lord's implied power. Yes, you're probably right there, Tall Mike, in that you'd have a few overlays, and smudgy screen, and that'd kind of give the sense that something strange is happening, or greater sense, I should say. The Wild Away says, I remember seeing the last episode at the time, but find it hard now to believe that I sat through the previous 30 episodes of the War Games. Rude.
Harsh but fair.
Harsh but probably fair, yes, fair enough. Groucho Engels says, greatest story ever, short but sweet. And my last one is Jamie. I suspect not the Jamie, but you never know. Epic. And so important in the series as it's the first time we hear about the Time Lords, and probably one of the best stories of the classic era. It's a great way to wrap up my list of feedback.
Excellent, thank you very much. Before we head over to Ian, we're going to hear from our dear friend Adam Leslie.
It's Doctor Who's answer to the Crystal Maze, as here we are for the final time ever in the black and white 60s telly zone. Philip Maddock and the bloke from Rent-A-Ghost showcase acting styles on opposite ends of the ham scale. The Warlord is one of classic Who's most subtle and understated villains, while Edward Brayshaw makes Peter Miles seem like Marlon Brando. A race with dominion over war led by one or more warlords have bigger on the inside time machines called Sidrats, and a race with dominion over time led by Time Lords have bigger on the inside time machines called TARDISes. They're clearly all connected somehow. It's going to be fascinating to see how future production teams weave this continuity into Doctor Who canon. Zoe gets the leaving scene she deserves. The final glance over her shoulder is utterly heartbreaking. Jamie deserved a more meaningful exit though, and I really wish Troughton had been allowed to go out in a blaze of glory with a proper regeneration. Only Colin gets a flatter farewell. All in all, the War Games is a stone-cold banger. It almost makes you wish more stories dared to be this epic. A 12-part Dominators, anyone?
Oh dear. I think only Fraser Gregor will be agreeing with you on that one, Adam.
No. I draw the line. I draw the line at a 12-part Dominators. What a lovely production there, and great music, and some great points from Adam.
Thank you very much, Adam. Ian, who have you heard from?
Right then, quite a few to get through here as well. Jonathan writes in to say, I love the story, good premise, and after a hit and miss season, I'm glad at least Troughton went out with a bang. I'll ignore the temptation to make a reference to him also going out with a bang at a convention many years later. Okay, it seems I gave in to temptation. I am weak. Abend Star says, sad ending, and when you watch how the Doctor interacts with the other Time Lords, you can see the Doctor is still a Time Lord. He may care, but he is alien and has different morals and values in understanding how the universe works, and his place and responsibilities are within it. Beeble Pete says, the Sidrat design drawings say they're to be painted Ford Tractor green, and the Sidrat props are used interchangeably with raw state TARDISes in the episodes. I like that, because TARDIS is such a slow coach of a moniker that it should be painted like a slow-moving vehicle. The Doctor Who Show, hello Rob, writes in to say, an extraordinary story from the point of view I can watch the 10 episodes easier than many 6-parters. What is this voodoo? Rob, it's quality. Jonathan's back. He says, the story has one heck of an ending. Time Lords, Jamie and Zoe with their memories wiped. What must that have been like to watch at the time? If you spent 3 years watching Jamie, I can imagine that packs a punch. If the show had ended right there, it would have been a great finale. Simon J. says, nice of the Trout to lend Wendy P his special Mac to wear in the War Games. Naughty. Treebeard says, the first time we met other Time Lords doesn't disappoint. Those weird cabinet TARDIS things, though, with the door that pops out. Yeah, what about them? I like them. Brandy Bongos, Brendan, hello, says, somehow amazingly good, despite being 10 episodes long. Wisely split roughly into stories of 442 episodes, the only bits that drag by the author's own admission are the escape and capture loop stories. Even then, the visuals are top-notch, so they don't feel like a chore. A classic. Gavin in Transit at Happiness Patrol says, I quite like the bravery of revealing the screen and that things aren't quite what they appear to be, not even 10 minutes into episode 1. Given the length of the story, you could forgive Dixon Hulk for saving that until episode 3 or 4. Very bold writing. Quillpen says, I can watch this in one day with meal breaks, etc. It has an ease of watching that the director's skills shine. Story, cast, cliffhangers, all constructed with consummate skill. Considering the backstage issues, this is beautiful. Lady Jennifer and Carstairs spin-off material. I guess he means spin-off material, please. Yeah, absolutely. I think I said that in the show just now. It would be great. I mean, it wouldn't be great. No one would listen to it. But I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet. Lucy McCall says, I like the way the story is revealed in layers and the breadth of it. The supporting cast are all so good and they give the impression of how big the plan is. Moments that stand out. David Troughton's soldier fighting the hypnosis, the warlord's scream as he realises his fate, and the Doctor's farewell to Jamie and Zoe, knowing they won't remember him. I'm a bit sad now. John Hall says, I think the War Games would have been an episode shorter if David Maloney had directed the security chief to speak at a normal rate of speed. More happens in the first episode of the War Games than in the entirety of the Space Pirates. My good friend Tristan, DJ Alpha T, says, the epic conclusion of the Troughton and Black and White eras. Epic in scope and emotion, 10 episodes, yet doesn't get boring. Time Lords, Philip Maddox cool and calm, Warlord. What a stupid fool you are. The heartbreaking farewell to Jamie and Zoe. Troughton is so good. It looks amazing, superb direction. Is this the ultimate in 1960s Who? It just might be. A very rare 10 out of 10 for me. See, I think we're being sort of slowly overwhelmed by the weight of public opinion here. Everyone loves this story. It really is that good. David Seasey says, my favourite Patrick Troughton story, he goes out in a blaze of glory. Prep Right at I'm Not Bobby says top 10. Taylor Scott says not a bad story, however I think it should have been a bit shorter, much like this comment section. Camo Hatman says quite possibly the best story of the 60s. Amazing acting from everyone, so many interesting characters and an impeccable antagonist. I love the concept of the history zones and the tragic departure of Jamie and Zoe. The final episode is perfect and sets up the next 55 years. 10 out of 10. Fwibbler says, a great story but a tad too long. Could have taken it down to 8 episodes and would have been epic. I mean, I would argue it's still epic. And yeah, 5 and 6 episodes, 5 and 6 were a little bit paddy, but yeah, we've had to make do with a lot worse. Derek Robinson at 2 Fat Feet says, I'm actually surprised how well it sustains 10 episodes. The story develops at the right pace. Episode 10 pretty much stands alone, and the series could have ended there with adequate closure. James Bree is a waste of cast budget. Oh, I disagree. But Edward Brayshaw's performance is almost Shakespearean. Benji Man says it was a great way to send Troughton off. I felt sorry for Jamie and Zoe for their memories to be erased. And at LC Naturalist writes in to say, excellent story, but it's 5.5 hours. And Will, at Will M. Greenhaw, says, I have it on my shelf, but the 10 episode watch is stopping me. Will, don't let it stop you. These are 10 episodes that are worth watching. There are many, many stories that are less worth watching than this one. That is it from me.
Well, that was fantastic to hear from all of you, and if you'd like to get in touch about a future story, all the various ways and means are listed over our end credits. But before we say goodbye to Simon, we're going to have some recommendations.
Oh, lovely. Ooh, lovely. What's that from? The Ooh, lovely.
That is from Day of the Doctor, when Matt Smith and David Tennant put their glasses on and they see each other and go,
lovely.
I didn't realise. It always makes me chuckle, so I thought, I'll stick that in there. Yeah. Okay, well, Simon, what would you like to recommend for us?
Well, recommendations are always hard because there's so much to choose from. I try to even, when asked for a recommendation, I always try and do something which is somehow tangentially linked to what we're mainly talking about. And the only link here is the name. But it was also a very important part of my childhood. There was a film called War Games. With Matthew Broderick.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's kind of it's credited as being one of the first sort of computer hacking films.
Yeah.
And it absolutely appealed to my friends and I, and my friends who liked and watched Doctor Who to varying degrees. If I can express it in those terms.
Yeah.
But War Games, it's a 1983 film. A lot of people are probably familiar with it. Matthew Broderick, Ali Sheedy, others, and it really spoke to us as nerdy teenagers. I mean, it was 1983, but we're sort of watching it on VHS rental in sort of 85, I guess. Really, really spoke to us as nerdy teenagers of the 80s, and into our computers and trying to do programming in BASIC on a TRS-80 and all that kind of stuff. And so forward looking when you think about it in terms of
so ahead of its time, isn't it?
Exactly, with
hacking
hacking into things. He changes his grade at the beginning, and obviously this whole thing about playing, thermonuclear war across the. But the other thing is he's playing it with it's just text prompts, like when he's playing it initially. And all that, the way computers kind of were back then, and the fact that he actually sort of dials into the system using the modem. I mean, that's very. I mean, no one had a modem. I mean, no one had a modem back then. We didn't have modems, but if you haven't seen it, it's definitely one for any geeky Doctor Who fan.
Yeah, I've got friends at work, and they're perhaps in their 20s, but because of the age of their parents, they've been sort of indoctrinated into the 80s movie cult. So I think that would probably appeal to a lot of them as well. So that's very good recommendation. Thank you, Simon.
What have I been reading, watching and listening to lately? Not an awful lot, with one thing and another. I'm quite excited for the new Kate Nash album that came out a couple of days ago. I've given it a couple of listens. Obviously, it's not supposed to be my thing. She's, she doesn't play guitar. She doesn't scream. Nevertheless, I really like it. I think it's a very beautiful set of songs. It's called 9 Sad Symphonies, although bizarrely it's got 10 songs on it, which is kind of lovely. And it's a real kind of kick on in her career. It's all sort of orchestrated, and there's lots of strings and things in the background, so it's really nice production, and a really, really solid record. Still kind of shot through with Kate Nash's trademarks. It's very sweary. It's kind of sweet, it's kind of naive, it's kind of lovely. Probably just how I imagine Kate Nash is. So, yeah.
That's interesting, Ian. I'll have to check that one out, I guess.
I am going to recommend something from one of our contributors that we've just been hearing from, and that is a new novel from Adam S. Leslie. It's called Lost in the Garden. And I'm about halfway through it at the moment, so I don't want to kind of spoil it, but just to give you a brief idea of what to expect, it's very kind of end of the world sort of thing, but it's riddled with humour and just very bizarre sort of comedy in some ways. It's a very unusual read. Adam has been on our show before. He came on to do Evil of the Daleks, and he's a lovely, lovely chap, and he's obviously a very talented writer as well. So that's been published recently, and he's been doing book tours and all sorts of things to promote it. So I would certainly recommend having a read of that. I've been, quite enjoying it. I'm not a massive reader, so it takes a lot to sort of keep my attention span. I think it's just through just probably lots of things like social media and that kind of stuff. My attention span has become so fleeting that it's hard for me to to keep at it. But now I've been really enjoying reading it.
I fall asleep is the problem. Like I sort of read 4 pages and I go, oh god, I can't. Even it's so hard. And but also I listen to podcasts. I mean, I'm an audio person, and I, political podcasts, other podcasts, Doctor Who podcasts. Like there are so many that you listen to, and actually going to bed to kind of play cards on my iPad while listening to a podcast is actually what I do, and that would be back in the day when I was noting how many times I'd read Target novelizations. That would be my opportunity to I'd sit down, I'd be in bed. I was always going to bed early to read, so I could read the Armageddon Factor or something like that.
No wonder you fell asleep.
Yes, maybe it's a learning error.
I've been banned from listening to political podcasts at bedtime because
makes you cross.
Annoys my wife so much that she can't go to sleep, which is probably fair enough. So I'll put on something much, much better, like, for instance, Flight Through Entirety.
Oh, there you go. Yes,
oh, look at that. It's a seamless segue
segue.
Simon, would you like to give a plug to your numerous broadcasting things that you've got going on? You're a podcaster and a broadcaster.
Yes. So I am honoured to be part of the broader Flight Through Entirety team. I'm a latecomer to the Empire, although I've known the guys involved, most of our lives. And so I'm on, episodes of that, as well as the family, which it has spawned with things like 500 Die, which I've been very excited to be able to speak about some classic era stories in that, and many more to come. And so we've got, we've just had, depending on when this is going out, season 10 or series 10 of the new series with Capaldi. So Capaldi's final era will be hitting your pods in the back half of 2024. And I think the next 500 Year Diary season will be next year, as in 2025.
Yeah.
God, 2025.
You guys have got so much on the go. I mean, Nathan's got about 500,000 podcasts going.
It's outrageous. It's outrageous. he has more minutes of podcasting output than there are hours in the day.
The annoying thing is, he's bloody brilliant on all of them as well. It's very irritating.
Doesn't even have to try. It's very rude, Nathan, if you're listening, and I know you are.
Hi, Nathan.
Hi, Nathan. And of course, then there's our hot takes on the season, which is just finished as we're recording this on Shooty's first season, called The Second Great and Bountiful Human Empire. Anyway, so there's those, but the other thing that I do is I broadcast on a radio station in Sydney called 2MBS Fine Music Sydney, which it might explain my complete and utter ignorance of the popular music.
It's a bit more high end, shall we say? It's a bit.
No,
more,
I wouldn't want to judge. I wouldn't want to judge that one is better than the other. You may wish to take that from my tone of voice, but I wouldn't want to actually explicitly say that. So I present a breakfast program on that. So if you listen in Sydney, I'm on a Thursday morning. It's 102.5 FM. 2mbsfinemusicsydney.com, so you can listen to it anywhere you like.
Yeah, it's available as a podcast
on the free 2MBS app, available for iOS and Android. But that's not available as a podcast. That's the breakfast show. But I also do, and I've been doing for 20 years this year.
Holy moly!
Holy moly, indeed. And but I also do on 2MBS. I do a weekly 1 hour long form interview show.
That's what I've been listening to.
That's what you've heard, yeah. And thank you very much. And it's it's an arts guest, usually a classical music related guest, but I do stray into musical theatre and straight theatre as well, and anything that might interest the arts audience. There's one particular episode which might be of greater interest to this audience, and that is the fact that the episode that went out, it goes out on a Wednesday, and so the episode which went out on the 22nd of November last year, I had someone called Katie Manning as my guest because I thought that might have been appropriate for the
Yes,
week. So that was
just
my
a bit.
that was my bit of self-indulgence. I thought I'd arrange Katie because we pre-recorded it months in advance. I pre-record them all, but I pre-recorded her sometime in advance because she does still visit here quite regularly because she's got family.
Yes.
And she's a great. I've known her for 30 years. I wouldn't claim that I know her, but I know friends or anything. But we know each other through Doctor Who conventions from yesteryear. So I would point that one out. But I would say that anyone with if I can gently suggest that anyone with a penchant for say musical theatre should. Listen to the Anthony Warlow one, which is coming out this week that we're recording this podcast. Anthony Warlow is a great superstar of the Australian musical theatre stage. He has appeared internationally. If you're a Les Mis fan, for instance, he's on the symphonic recording from 88 or 89, which they grabbed cast members from all over the world to do a combination. So he's one of 3 Australian cast members that are on that. Philip Quast is another one I'd recommend. He was Javert. In fact, he's sort of seen as the what's the word? The ultimate Javert, basically. And
he was in a fantastic British TV sci-fi show over here called Ultraviolet.
Oh, he was
in that,
was
aware
he?
of that?
No,
Yeah.
yes, I've heard of that, but I haven't actually seen it.
It's created by Joe Ahern, who was a director for season 1 of the 2005 revival of Doctor Who. Very, very worthwhile checking out.
I've heard of that, yes.
They had a newcomer in that production called Idris Elba. He's gone on to do one or two other things.
Yes, I think he's not something. So he might make something of himself, that young man.
Yeah. Jack Davenport's in it, and there's a few others as well. But it's worth a watch. Yeah,
it's probably on the very long list. We've got so much we've got to watch. So you're years behind. But yeah, anyway. So and if you are interested in classical music, there's loads of classical music. Yes, not just Australian people of note from Australia, but I'll interview visiting artists as well when they're appearing with the Sydney Symphony Orchestra or the Australian Chamber Orchestra or other notable orchestras out here. So if you do like classical music, I'd recommend it. So that's called In Conversation, the very bland name of In Conversation, because of course and I took on the program from the previous guy 4 years ago, only 4 years ago. So it did have a generic name, and I'm the one who thrust it into the podcast world by subsequently doing a podcast edit of each episode.
Yeah,
and it's a kind of there's a Desert Island Disky thing to it too, in that people choose tracks and they talk about them, and I like to think that we don't get too deep into the weeds in a way that's not that
it's very accessible.
Exactly, in terms of we're not talking about aspects of classical music that would be intimidating for anyone. And in fact, it's fascinating to learn about people's cello collections and in terms of the differing instruments and harpsichords and the big thing at the moment is that's been fashionable over the last 20-30 years is called historically informed performance, where you try and use instruments which were, or reproductions of instruments at least, which were typical of a certain era. Anyway, I'm going on and boring you, but that's what I would like to recommend if anyone has any interest. So just search 2MBS, as in Music Broadcasting Service, 2MBS In Conversation in your podcast app, and it should come up.
Well, I shall put some links in our show notes, so anyone who's interested in giving it a listen, they'll be able to click on that and go straight to it. Simon, thank you so much. It's been lovely having you on the show.
It's been an absolute honour. I've had an absolute ball. I love listening to you guys and all your guests as well, some of whom I know as well.
It's good, isn't it?
It's great. It's great. No, it's really good. You can't talk about Doctor Who enough, and I think this podcast is a very appropriate addition to the Doctor Who library out there. I know there's a lot of Doctor Who podcasts, but this is one of the few that I listen to. And I want to congratulate you both on making it to the end of the 60s and making it to the end of the missing episode. You didn't conk out during season 4.
Yes.
And I don't know whether, obviously I haven't been able to listen to the Space Pirates episode, but I hope you recognise that that was the last time you had to do a missing episode.
Yes, it does come up in the conversation. It's obviously everyone listening now will have heard it, but it's notable. It's a very notable episode, and as soon as you listen to it, you'll understand why I'll leave you with that particular nugget.
Makes me want to cry. But can I just be the nerdy fan again, if I may?
Yeah, of course.
Again, constantly. The fact that, in our fanish lives, I mean, not counting, the stash that they find at Enterprises and the stuff that they find at the BFI, but when that missing episodes list is kind of starts in 1982 or 1 or whenever that winter special comes out. The War Games is complete at that point. We've never had in the 30, 40, how many episodes have been discovered since then? 40 nearly. We've never had the first missing episode or the last missing episode discovered. It's always been the first missing episode's always been Marco Polo 1, and the last one's always been Space Pirate 6. And that's it'd be very odd if Space Pirate 6 or Marco Polo 1 turned up.
I was going to say, wouldn't it be great if in the intervening few weeks before we put this out?
Yes, exactly. So this is my kind of this is my way of this is my version of Ian Levine saying there will always be 106 missing episodes of Doctor Who. There you go.
You're not two people I would have ordinarily said had an awful lot in common, but yeah. Well, there we go. Simon, thank you so much. It's been an absolute delight having you on the show.
Thank you, Mark and Ian.
Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to get in touch, you can contact us at mailbagofrassilon@gmail.com. We're also on Blue Sky at aotas.bsky.social, and we're also on Facebook. Thank you to Momo Tempo for providing our theme music, and special thanks to Harry Whitley and Andy Moore.